Stephen, how big is this Oasis reunion for English people?
Depends on the type. Because if you remember from back in the 90s, or if you've researched it at all, there was a little geographical battle between Oasis and Blur, the
Oh,
band led by Damien Albarn.
yeah.
And
Woohoo!
yeah, and they're actually they had some more hits than that. They were actually a really popular English band. I didn't really know that. I always thought it was Woohoo. That's the only one that we know here in America. Blur was really popular in England,
Well, correct
but
me if I'm wrong. The lead singer was the guy for the Gorillas.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And but it was all about class back then. What class of person you were. I think Blur were more part of the high end culture of England at the time who listened to their music, whereas Oasis were on a different side. Or I could be wrong. I might have switched between the two. So I think England's divided on this.
Are they really?
No, probably not. That was just a thing in the 90s. Look it up though. Read up on it. There's a pretty extensive article on Blur versus Oasis and the beef they had. And I don't know. I think the Gallagher brothers are just so good at insulting people, and the way the words that they use, the choice of words that they use to insult people. So read some of the quotes. It's great.
Okay. Well, I mean, I know a little bit of Oasis, but I know the band, the brothers, have had a feud for quite some time, and now they're back together again. But correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen. I remember in the '90s, it was kind of like it may have just been like a thing of the time, but I remember people saying like, "Does Oasis rival the Beatles?"
It's because they look the same. They have a
Yeah,
similar
it was
look.
it was the haircuts.
Yeah. Well, I don't find Liam. I think Liam Gallagher is kind of overrated. He just kind of walks out with their cool walk and this cool look, and just puts his hand behind his back and he goes, "Wah." That's an entire Oasis concert. That's the opening scene song for you right there. Boom.
Have you seen them live?
No, only like on video and stuff. But
Oh, are you excited? I'm
no,
guessing not by your tone.
no, not really. I mean, they're only touring in England anyway. I don't think they're going to come to the U.S.
Yeah,
Here's a question that we could pose later on, because we got a lot to get into with football.
we do.
Will Oasis play more shows on their tour than Ayuk will play in games for the 49ers? Because I think that's what everyone's thinking with this Oasis thing, is that they're going to go on tour, then they're going to hate each other again, then they're going to cancel it after a few shows.
Well, we'll see about Ayuk because I am fucking over it, man.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw me earlier. I was on the KMBR off-air thing.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, I am over this Ayuk story, and we'll get to it. We'll get to it all. Just your opinion, man.
We don't
Stephen
have
Link.
to. We don't have to.
No. We will. We haven't done a pod in a week, and we have to, recap everything that's gone on in this saga, which is absolutely nothing, absolutely fucking nothing. This thing is annoying as hell, and you got to talk about it because people care about it every fucking day. Anyway, just your opinion, man. Stephen Langford, Derek Papa. We will get to everything that we missed in a week, because Stephen and I, we had to recover on Sunday, and I'll speak for myself. I did, because we had a good time at Elena's wedding. It was a great time at Elena Matsorkis's wedding. We had a blast. It was so great to see her get married. And we went to the Greek Fest in Oakland, where we usually, meet everybody for Greek Fest in May. But she got the wedding over there, and Steven and I and Jesse and Jacob, our friend, all went, and we had a good time. We danced, we drank, and we drank, and we drank. And I was in no shape to do a podcast last Sunday. And you know what? Nothing has really transpired, so I don't feel like we missed out on anything.
I think we're fine. We're allowed a day off every now and then.
Yeah.
I don't know. I actually had some early Taco Bell, and I was okay by the afternoon. So I could have done a podcast, but really there wasn't as much that happened in the grand scheme of things, unless you want to break down the 49ers dominating Raiders defense led by a linebacker whose last name is Governor. I never heard that.
Governor?
Governor. Never heard of that guy, Governor.
No. I think, by the way, is your mic on?
Hope so.
Or maybe it's not close enough to your face.
Oh no, it's not. How about that? Jeez, this thing is causing problems.
I have a good ear for that. Yeah, I mean, initially I was like, we got to talk Raiders and Niners are playing in the preseason, and sure enough, it was just a big sneaky tie. Which, you know what? One time where I'm like, I appreciate a tie because no one wants to see overtime preseason games. Nobody. In fact, Adam Copeland was doing the post game show, and he was shitting his pants that he would have to stick around for an overtime. And there was not, because there is no more overtime in preseason, thank God. But yeah, I mean, as far as that game, the Niners beat up on the Raiders, second string players. Purdy looked good. Debo looked fine. He had one interception that ricocheted off his hand that he didn't get off the line of scrimmage very well. I don't really look a lot into that game whatsoever. They needed to get some playing time for Purdy. They got it. The one guy for the Raiders, Tyreek McAllister, made a fantastic touchdown. He made the team for the Raiders. That's all that needs to be said. It wasn't that big of a deal. It was a tie. Who cares? Okay. It's preseason. Preseason's over. We're over at preseason. We're on to the regular season now, Stephen. But the thing that I am a little annoyed with, actually not even a little, very annoyed with, is that we are, if you're listening to this podcast, it comes out on Thursday. So we are exactly a week away from football starting. A week from tomorrow, we're recording this on Wednesday night, we have the Ravens and Chiefs playing in the opener. And I feel like we're not excited for football starting, the actual playing of the games. It feels like we're still hung up on contracts, off-season talk. You know me, Steven. I'm all about the off-season. I get into it. When football's here, I want to talk about football. I want to talk about the game being played. It doesn't feel like next week it's going to happen, but it just, to me, it feels weird like we're still stuck on the Ayuk drama and Trent Williams and Hassan Reddick and Jamar Chase, and none of these things have been resolved, and I'm just over it. I want to talk about the games. I want to talk about the matchups, and I know a year ago at this time, Nick Bosa wasn't resolved, but this just feels like, ugh, and Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch spoke today. We'll get to that, but I thought there'd be some movement already with this Ayuk thing. And CeeDee Lamb getting his contract, thank God that's taken care of. He gets 4 years, $136, $28 million, I believe, with a signing bonus, and $100 million guaranteed. And he deserves it. I think that right now you can argue that he may be in the category of the second best wide receiver in football. I think Jamar Chase actually is better now that I said that out loud. He should make more money, but we'll see about his contract.
I'd say CeeDee Lamb is number 5.
Okay, how would you rank him then?
I think Adams is still better than he is, despite the last
Fair
season. Justin Jefferson's better than he is. Tyreek Hill's better than he is. And Jamar Chase is better than he is. So I'd take 4 other receivers before I'd take CeeDee Lamb. Personally, I think it's a gross overpay, but what are they supposed to do?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I wouldn't say it's a gross overpay. I'd say that's just the market now, and he's young in that category of a Justin Jefferson. So he didn't eclipse him. Yeah, I'm with you. 5th in the wide receiver category makes sense. They just had to do it. So
I've been saying it since the start, Derek. I think the Vikings are screwed. I think the Cowboys are screwed. I think the Dolphins are screwed for the future.
Just wait.
They might be good. They might be good this year. And the Vikings got dealt a bad hand with JJ McCarthy's injury, but it doesn't seem like the Cowboys have much of a plan in the future. They're going to be paying a majority of money to CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons when they don't have a quarterback. The Vikings, I mean, JJ McCarthy could turn into something, but what is he going to turn into? A Super Bowl caliber, playoff caliber quarterback? Like by the time Jefferson's contract is up, like when's that going to happen? The Dolphins are allocating a lot of money to Waddle, Hill, and Tagovailoa, and I wonder what their defense is going to look like too. So I'm going to keep the same energy on these wide receiver contracts that I thought before. I understand that this is what the market dictates now, but I don't think you're going to be seeing a lot of those teams moving on to the playoffs or becoming perennial playoff contenders anytime soon. I think the Lions, that's another one I didn't even mention. Shoot, I mean, I can make the argument that Amon-Ra is better than CeeDee Lamb, to be honest. But I think they got to I think they got an absolute steal in that contract with Amon-Ra. I think they got a bargain with that one. So I think the Lions are in a little bit of a different playing field. But yeah, these wide receiver contracts, it's not like I understand why they're paying them. You don't want to just let those guys go, but I just don't believe it's going to benefit them in the long run.
No, I mean, you are right. I think that's why there might be a holdup with the Niners and Ayuk, because they don't want to allocate so much of their future to Ayuk, basically. And they have to pay Trent, they have to pay Travarius Ward, they have to pay Purdy. And yeah, I mean, that's just the market now. Like,
yeah,
I understand what you're saying with JJ McCarthy, but they can't get by with paying Justin Jefferson that amount of money now. The Cowboys, they're going to have to pay Micah Parsons, and I don't know what they want to do with Dak. It seems like they just want to go into the season. I guess Jerry Jones said today that he doesn't anticipate them getting a contract done with Dak Prescott before the season starts. So he'll go into a lame duck year, and I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if Dak Prescott either plays fantastic or doesn't play well, but he most likely will cash in on a big payday this offseason. And who knows if it's back with the Cowboys, could be with the Raiders. Who knows? But as far as Brandon Ayuk, look, I know there's been so much back and forth with this thing since the last time we did a podcast. Basically, Mike Silver came on with Tolbert and Copes and said that everything's still on the table. He could be traded to Washington. He could be traded to Pittsburgh. There's all these rumors that they're on the final stages of their contract, Niners and Ayuk, that is, and they just need to iron out little details here or there. It's almost done. And that was a week ago, and nothing has happened. Then my dad goes on his radio show and says, I hear it's close to being done. And he said things are going to be done pretty soon here. And nothing has transpired. I thought the CD Lamb contract would expedite this process a little bit faster, just because at this point, Brandon Ayuk is not going to make anything close to what CD Lamb is going to make. So his contract, CD's, pales in Ayuk's pales in comparison to that of CD Lamb's. So don't you want to think? I always thought like it was going to be tough when Justin Jefferson got his contract and the timing of that. But don't you want your contract to outdo the next guy? At this point, like, okay, Ayuk got paid, but it's not what CD Lamb got. It's not even close to that. So I thought that maybe would kind of ramp things up. But no, it hasn't. And, my dad today is funny. He goes on the show and he's like, Mike Garafolo is saying that CD Lamb's going to practice today. And I'm all prepared for that. And then halfway through the show, well, we should probably, temper our expectations. I don't know if he's going to practice now. I don't know about that. And he didn't practice. So I'm just over this thing because it is exhausting. It changes every day. I think that we are now more in the school of maybe they're going to trade Ayuk. And I'll get to that in a little bit here, but I'm just over this topic because I know, like, I hear the reports of Trent Williams and he wants to get paid. Is that the terminology that Josina Anderson used? I don't know what that means. They're going to pay Trent. They have to pay Trent. It just seems like they're waiting on to paying Trent because they're holed up on Ayuk. So I am just over this conversation, Steven.
I'm not, actually.
Why?
I was, because I thought this was going to get done before official practices start after week 3 of the preseason. And I thought all that talk was just going to be, okay, they're going to get a deal done. They're going to go back to practice and everything's going to be, you're going to forget all this ever happened. That's why I was getting tired of talking about Brandon Ayuk, because I felt like a deal was going to get done. But now it's crunch time. Like, this is now where we're going to start finding you every single practice that you're missing.
Yeah.
Like, this is clearly contentious with the team. As far as, to be honest with you, I'm as interested as I've ever been in this Ayuk thing now, like how they handle it. Because I really thought it was just like, I thought they were going to move on from him at one point. Then when they didn't, I figured, okay, you know what? Maybe it's just we're stuck in this social media era where we're constantly having to give opinions, and maybe nothing's really going on in the building, and they're just going to come to an agreement on a contract. Ayuk's going to be back with the team, whatever. But now we are less than 2 weeks away from the start of the season. You're going up against a New York Jets team where Aaron Rodgers has a vendetta against the 49ers. Javon Kinlaw, I think, is going to want to show out along with that rest of that defensive line. You don't have a deal done with your left tackle. You don't have one done with your wide receiver. I think the 49ers have just totally misread this entire situation. And really, like whether it's the wide receiver market, I think Trent Williams is saying what Penei Sewell got and is saying, you know what, you got to up my average annual value too for the next 3 years, along with the guaranteed money. I think it's more than just guaranteed money at this point with him. I think it could be, at least. I just think they've totally misplayed this. And I'm not saying Brandon Ayuk's not at fault, because they've obviously done everything they can to potentially move him. And Ayuk has kind of acted unprofessional, I think, a lot of this time. So I think he does deserve a large portion of the blame, but I think the 49ers do too. And I think dating back to them misreading the overtime rules in the Super Bowl, which didn't cause them to lose it, but it definitely helped. It definitely factored in to their soccer team, Leeds United, losing in the championship match so they wouldn't get promoted to the Premier League, and in turn they lost $200 million because of that. I know that says nothing to do with this situation, but it's still something that happened with the 49ers. Then these contracts came about. Everything has just been a mess from the start, and all they wanted to avoid was drama. Well, all they have is drama. I think that they've misread this. I think Ayuk has played this out in the wrong way. I don't think teams want to trade for him anymore. I think they had offers on the table. He rejected it. I don't think like I heard you say on the KMBR show, I heard you say, why not get this deal done with the Browns? Why would I want him if I'm the Browns? I gave them an offer and he rejected coming to the Browns because he didn't want to play for the Browns. Why would we want him here? So I think they've totally misread everything. Everything. It's a mess on all fronts. And that's why it's as interesting as it's ever been for me.
No, I mean, that's fair. That's totally fair. But in all fairness of the 49ers and Lynch and Shanahan, what have they really misread here?
The wide receiver market. They read the boom in the offensive line and the fact that Trent didn't have any guaranteed money. They're always thinking 3 or 4 years ahead. Well,
okay,
he didn't have any
hold
guaranteed money on his contract.
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Just with Ayuk, like here's my thing with Trent. I think they know they have to pay Trent, but they can't pay Trent until they pay Ayuk, because Trent's money will be more than Ayuk, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think they want to pay Trent, but they can't do it until they know how much they're giving Ayuk. So I don't think anything with Trent is them like, well, why would we pay this guy? The only trepidation I think they have is, how long are you going to play, Trent? Like, that's the question we have here, is like, all right, we obviously need you, we want you, and you should be compensated to be the top paid left tackle in football. You're that good, but you're 36 years old. How long are you sticking around for? We don't want to make a commitment to you for that long, and then we got to pay dead cap on this shit. So that's the only thing where I think they have some trepidation. And you saw today, John Lynch came in and asked the question, has Trent Williams threatened to retire? And John Lynch was like, I'm not getting into that. And he probably has. So I hear you. I hear you on the Ayuk front. Or sorry, I understand, like, if they misplayed the Trent Williams thing, then I'd be like, okay, you got to pay the guy. It is what it is. Like the same thing with McCaffrey. Like, you got to pay him. With Ayuk, I don't really know what they have misplayed here, because they gave him the offer, and I think $28 million is more than fair.
But they offered him 26 a while back, and now you've waited for a bunch of these other contracts to get signed. It did them no good in waiting. They should have just paid him the $28 million, and he would have gotten a good deal.
Yeah, but Steven, I think they also know what they have in Ayuk, and I think that while the wide receiver market boomed, I don't think that they think of him as these other teams think of the players that they signed this offseason. I don't think the Niners think in high regard of Brandon Ayuk as the Lions do with Amon-Ra St. Brown, or obviously the Vikings do with Justin Jefferson, the Cowboys do with CeeDee Lamb, or even the way the Dolphins feel maybe about Jalen Waddle. I don't think they think of him as that type of guy. And that's why when they plan out their roster for the future, they question if Brandon Ayuk is a part of that. Why else would they contemplate trading him at this point? So I hear what you're saying, but just because the market says that Ayuk is worth $30 million doesn't mean they have to pay him that.
Well, also keeping all of your players, signing Christian McCaffrey to the new deal, signing Jawan Jennings to the new deal. Do you really need to sign Jawan Jennings to a new contract? if it's a few $1 million that's worth giving up, I'm willing. You got to do something bold here. You can't just keep everybody. And they tried paying everybody, and now it's bit them in the ass.
Well, paying Juwan Jennings means that you have a wide receiver there in case Ayuk does leave.
But what was the point of drafting the 2 wide receivers in the draft then? Like Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing, you're just going
to have a backup plan in case you do have to move Ayuk, or let's be real, like the plan initially was to trade Debo.
Right. But I still think that they could have made him a higher offer earlier, because what do you
think he's worth?
I think 28 million is good for him.
Okay. All right.
I
agree with that.
I think that's a good enough deal for him. And if that's the offer that was on the table at the early portion of this, I don't know what Ayuk was looking for, but I think Ayuk would have accepted that deal if it was worth 28 million. I don't know what the negotiations looked like, but do you want, but as far as, okay, let's forget about what happened in the past and who misread what, because the most important part is what's going to happen in the future here and what's going to happen in this next week. Now, do you want my tinfoil hat, total asshole, not caring about the player, unprofessional take? Do you want that one first, or do you want my realistic, this is probably what's going to happen take?
I mean, you know, I'm all about wanting to hear your tinfoil take. Is that straight from like Joaquin Phoenix from Signs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And not Scary Movie 3 where
Simon Rex.
Yes, where he was wearing the tinfoil hat, and then Charlie Sheen
chocolate kiss.
It was a Hershey's chocolate kiss.
That's the second Scary Movie 3 reference I've made today.
But
both podcasts.
Here is what the 49ers should do. All right. Ayuk, you don't have to practice, okay? We're going to find you. We're going to find you every single day. We're going to find you for every missed game. All right, you don't want to sign a contract. You don't want to go to wherever we came to an agreement with. You don't want to go to these other teams. All right, fine. You're going to be sacrificing game checks here. We're talking millions. And then once he does join, because they threatened him with that, then Kyle Shanahan sabotages what could be a contract year for him, make his stats look like dog shit in 2024, and then they trade him at the deadline. So long, sir. We're trading you for nothing.
All right, now give me your real take.
Trading his ass. Now you want my real answer?
Yeah, I do.
Well, there's a variation of that, but they can't sabotage his season, because if they do, then that would be a detriment to the offense, and the team is much greater than, say, one's vendetta against a wide receiver. So that's not going to be a realistic option. I do think they have the offer. They said, hey, look, we got it. We got week 1 to get ready for. We've given you what we think you're worth. We've given you an offer. You can take it or not. And if you don't want to, fine. We are not going to trade you. So you are going to get fined for every missed practice. You are going to get fined for every missed game. And I think ultimately he's going to come back. And though as awkward as it may be, I think they are going to keep him here on his 5th-year option. And I do think they will trade him before the deadline. I don't think they're going to trade him before the season. I think it's too late for that. I think they are going to trade him at the deadline, if anything. But I also think the 49ers are going to be stuck in a tough place. Let's just say Ayuk is looking the same as he's done and continued on this upward trajectory like he has throughout his entire career, just getting better with every season. I think that's the worst thing that could happen. But I think they up his trade value and get what they can for him, instead of just, riding it out on the final year and letting him walk in free agency, because that doesn't do any good for you in the future. You're just letting a good player walk at that point.
Well, to catch everybody up to speed, so we all saw Ayuk traveled with the team to Vegas for that preseason game, which to me, that's like...
He just wanted to speak with AP. He just wanted to talk to his old friend.
Talk to AP, talk to Dante Whitner, just to chill on the sidelines, talk to Vern Glenn. And, that's, to me, seems like a good sign. Like, okay, well, he went to the preseason game, so I guess travel all the way there. That's interesting. And yeah, to talk to his former ASU coach, Antonio Pierce. So I thought something was trending in the right direction, but nothing's happened. And we do roster cut down day yesterday on Tuesday. And the only big thing to come out of that, I guess, was the Niners putting Elijah Mitchell on season-ending IR, which that sucks because his career has definitely taken a turn since Christian McCaffrey got there. and his role has diminished every year, and now I don't know what his future is going to be with the Niners at all. So you'll see more of J.P. Mason, Isaac Orendo, more people in the backfield. So nothing crazy with a roster cut down day yesterday. And then, I initially thought Kyle was going to speak today. John Lynch then was added at 2:45. We're like, oh, late edition. So does that mean something's going to be announced? Come to find out that that's just the way they always do it. Lynch speaks after Kyle. They did that last year. Nothing crazy there. So they speak today, and they both seem very annoyed. Kyle, the first question out the gate is, are you practicing today? And he goes, I hope. And you can tell nothing has really changed at all between the Niners and Ayuk. And the communication between the Niners and Trent sounds more positive than it does with Brandon Ayuk. And yes, Stephen, to what you were alluding to earlier, Kyle made it clear there are no medical limitations with Ayuk. So if he doesn't practice, he will be fined. I think they're playing hardball with him now, where it's like, just give us a fucking answer, man. Just what do you want to do? Do you want to play for this team? We'll trade you to Pittsburgh. You want to play for Pittsburgh? We'll trade you to Pittsburgh. But you don't like what they're paying you either, huh? So what do you want? What do you really, really want? Spice Girls, I know.
It felt like you were trapped there between wanting to make a Spice Girls reference or a Notebook reference.
I never seen Notebook.
It felt like you wanted to do Gosling. Tell me what you want. Versus, I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. So I want to really, really, really want. Zigga, zigga. Ah.
You know that Ryan Gosling guy? I'm surprised you know about him, Stephen, because he only appeals to women.
Yeah. What kind of comment was that?
Did you see that?
Yeah. What the hell?
And I was like,
Glenn
Powell appeals to men too? When it would okay.
Sorry, but Gosling's sick. Everyone's loved Gosling.
Gosling's all right. I liked him in I'm trying to think of a movie he was in that Drive is good. I like him in Drive.
I haven't seen Drive.
Drive's very good.
But Crazy Stupid Love, very good. La La Land, very good.
Didn't see that either. Didn't see Barbie either.
Crazy Stupid Love's a good one.
I heard it's good. I heard
David
it's good.
Lindhagen.
I do like Ryan Gosling when he hosts SNL. He's funny in that. I'll give him props for that.
Dude. He's a funny guy.
All right. Anyway, Ayuk. So today, Kyle seems like he's over it. He's frustrated. And John Lynch looked very frustrated. And I thought the questions were really good. Like Tim Kawakami's question to John Lynch about, does it feel weird that Ryan Williams is your friend, your agent, and he's putting you through the ringer with this thing? And he's like, it is what it is. Like, I get business. The best question I thought was from Kawakami as well, where he said, you guys are on the verge of another Super Bowl run. And, to tell the fans, we're going to, nickel and dime with certain players to not go for the Super Bowl this year. How do you explain that? Yeah, I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said. But John Lynch was like, well, first we need to prove that we're a Super Bowl team again. And that's where there's so much shit going on. Like, to finish up on the conversation in the press conference, John Lynch said that they've had a communication with Trent, and then when it comes to his communication with Brandon Ayuk, he's like, I'm not getting into the communication. I think just at this point, he's got to play. So they're over it. I feel like they're so fucking over it. And you don't trade somebody just to trade somebody because you're annoyed with them.
Right.
And that's why, like, I know that the trade back to the Cleveland Browns is not going to happen. But if you're like, what are we doing at this point? Like, Brandon, we got you a deal. It helps us out too. It benefits us with Amari Cooper. By all means. Like, what are we doing here?
Right.
And then, like, if it is down to just, the guaranteed money and whatnot, like, Brandon, we know that you view yourself as a Ferrari. If you want a Ferrari, you got to pay for a Ferrari. But we have many Ferraris on this team, and we got to fit them all in the garage. Good analogies. It's not going to give me credit for that.
Car analogies are old and played out, Derek. It's all about
you do the fucking chair lifts.
It's all about the chairlift, dude. I'm bringing something new. I'm bringing something unique. Not this car analogy.
I only did the car thing because Ayuk called himself a Ferrari.
I have been hearing these car analogies since this damn team started getting good in 2018 or 2019. Sorry, excuse me. misspoke. In 2019, I've been hearing the car analogies ever since. I've had it with the car analogies. We are onto the chairlift, man. We are, you know what? As far as analogies go, we're reaching the peak of the mountain. We're on the way up.
Are we?
Analogies.
So back to Tim Kawakami's question, where just like, do you feel like you're on the cusp of the Super Bowl, and do you really want a contract negotiation to prevent you from going for another Super Bowl this year? And John Lynch is very honest in saying, I don't know if we're going to be another Super Bowl team. So my whole thing is, and I'll ask the Chad, a bunch of Niner fans, does it feel like this team is already set up in just a bunch of chaos? And it's not even, we're not even focusing on like what really should have been the discussion of this offseason is the Niners coming back for redemption after, I mean, let's be real. It's enough chaos to come back from what they dealt with a year ago with the way their season ended in the Super Bowl. That's tough enough. That should be the conversation. Instead, it's been on Brandon Ayuk and what he's going to make and Trent Williams. And Trent, I think, is easier to figure out. I'm pretty sure he's going to be there week 1. But to me, you know, I asked this on the other podcast, and Tom and Adam brought this up today. Like, does this feel like this is like the worst offseason for the Niners in a little bit of time? Like, I'm not talking about like Jim Tom Sula or Chip Kelly. Like during the good days, like even, you know, with the uncertainty of Trey Lance at quarterback. Okay, they brought back Jimmy. Even if Trey Lance sucked, you could have gone back to Jimmy Garoppolo. That was probably maybe the biggest unknown. But now, like, you're having an integral part of your offense, and now he may hold the team hostage. Because let's be real, if he's not there week 1 and they struggle, it's, well, where was Ayuk?
Yeah.
None of it will be focused on the team. It will be focused on off-the-field stuff. Whether Ayuk gets paid or not, if he's not good to go and he looks slow, it's because he held out for most of training camp, or if not all of it. So it just seems like this is the most chaotic of off season that's bleeding now into the Niners regular season.
For sure. I think it is. I think it is, because as much as we wanted to talk about the Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo thing, their defense was the class of the league. They don't have that same defense right now. And I know the Manti Te'o thing, and I heard you guys talking about that as well. I understand like what he was saying, or the way he got to his point was maybe not the way to do it, but I think there's something to what he was saying. You know what my biggest concern is, and this is just reminding me a little bit of that 2021, and I think this was something that plagued them throughout the season. It's not just the confusion at quarterback. The one thing that I am kind of worried about, or concerned about rather, because I don't think we got an update on him from Lynch or Shanahan today, but I think the foreshadowing of what's happening with the running back room is kind of scary. I think that it's reminiscent of 2021 when Raheem Mostert is your starter, starts the season on injured reserve because he chipped cartilage in his knee or whatever he did week 1 of that season. So he was done the first 5 weeks. Elijah Mitchell steps in. Then Elijah Mitchell gets hurt. Trey Sermon steps in. Obviously, we know what happened with Trey Sermon. He eventually gets hurt. And their whole running back room, it was just in disarray for a lot of the season. Whereas the 49ers, Christian McCaffrey not playing through the preseason. I'm not saying he has to play in the preseason, but the fact that he's not really practicing too much, not a great thing. I know he's making progress, and I know they just want him ready for week 1. But with that, with Isaac Guerendo, with Elijah Mitchell, who's also now on injured reserve, it feels like this is not boding for a Super Bowl winning season. It's what it feels like, combined with everything. But I think the running backs are what makes this team tick. And I'm last year, I know no one wants to admit it, but the 49ers had a very, very favorable, should I say, injury report from last year. A lot of their players were healthy for a majority of the season. I know there's those 3 games in the middle of it, but and obviously what happened in the Super Bowl, but they were very lucky injury-wise. And just with everything that's happened this preseason, I know it's just preseason, it's training camp, and we get into the regular season, but you can't tell me that a bunch of these players getting injured early is going to be a good thing heading into the season. I'd say that's where my concern's at.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, but I'm not really too concerned about the running back room because while they have lesser talent behind Christian McCaffrey, they'd still be okay for a game or two if McCaffrey got hurt.
Yeah, but like I'm talking like extended periods of time.
Well, that's with anything, man.
Yeah, but it didn't happen last year. And it just, with everything that's going on this year, like Garendo's already tweaked his legs twice, his hamstring and now his groin.
So you're just saying there's just a bunch of just bad voodoo.
Yes, dude, just bad injury juju early on that feels like it's foreshadowing what's going to happen in the season. And I know the 49ers in 2021 were all good and they made it to the NFC Championship. But at the end of that time, when the 49ers were scraping their way into that NFC Championship, they were hurt. They were tired. They were slow. And that's just one thing. Because I think what Manti Te'o said had some validity to it.
Yeah, let's get into that real quick because Manti Te'o, I was going to bring him up during Jackass of the Week, but I don't think he really hits the category of Jackass of the Week. I just think that he's definitely trying to find himself in a new career path because everybody knows Manti Te'o as the linebacker with a fake girlfriend. That's just the truth. And I thought he redeemed himself pretty well 2 years ago when the Netflix documentary came out, and he was just a naive kid. So now he's trying to change that perception of himself. And he even said on Good Morning Football, he hasn't Googled himself since 2013. He's just trying to make a TV career. And he went on this past week and said that the Niners are emotionally distressed. But the reasoning he gave was because of what he saw in the preseason, which I find ridiculous. Like, you can't tell me they're emotionally distressed from the way they played against the Saints or the Raiders in the preseason.
Emotionally drained.
Drained. And I think that's accurate. I think that's a good take. I do. You can bring up the Super Bowl losses and, NFC Championship losses and injuries that Purdy faced and you're going through different quarterbacks, the Trey Lance, draft pick, that may look at as one of the worst in history now after Trey Lance throws 5 picks in a game and they came unscathed from that. But don't tell me, Manti Te'o, that you're gathering that from preseason games. That's where I think Manti's new in the business of TV and he's trying to come up with an opinion. His producer's trying to help him out. And I think that one's a misguided one. Right. And also I think that people are not listening to the message, but listening to the messenger. And of course the reaction is, oh, Manti Te'o, the guy with the fake girlfriend, is going to say that the Niners are emotionally distressed. Well, he should look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's fair, but that's also being cruel.
Yeah, but also let's look back at your dating history, whoever's saying that, and let's just have you hang on to that dating history for the rest of your professional career. And anytime you do anything in your life, we're going to bring it back to that one little thing that happened with your ex-girlfriend who you stopped talking to because she couldn't choose a restaurant that she wanted to eat at. I don't know, something random like that. But
you talking about somebody?
No, not really. It's just like his professional, it's like his opinion doesn't matter. Well, sorry, but despite the girlfriend stuff, he was one of the sickest college linebackers that we've ever seen, and he did play in the pros. And the one thing that you guys cut out of the sound, and I'm not blaming you because this is what you have to do in radio. You got to keep it local. You got to keep people interested, and you got to cut out a lot of it because he was going on for like 2 minutes. He started off with like Mike Tyson and comparing it to Mike Tyson. Like, it was a roundabout way of just saying they're emotionally drained.
Right.
But I think the more apt comparison he made is when he played for the Saints. And that's the part that a lot of people cut out. They did not hear that part. When
I have not heard this, actually.
Exactly. It was in the clip.
Well, to be fair, whatever was posted on social media is all that we got. Unless I'm wrong.
You're wrong. The entire middle part was cut out.
Okay, never mind then.
But he compared it to the Saints in 2017 and 2018. And he was on those teams. And you know what happened then? Minneapolis Miracle one year,
Yeah.
and then the PI. Then the PI review
Against the Rams, yes.
non-reviewable PI against the Rams. And he
Mikel
said
Roby
that
Coleman.
with those Saints teams, that had sucked the life out of them going into the next season. Now, and they're not on the same level, in my opinion, as the 49ers, like those Saints teams. They obviously reached the Super Bowl, but like, how are they going to bounce back from that? I think that was the more apt comparison, not just him going on these 2 preseason games and then comparing it to the Seahawks and saying the Seahawks are the NFC West favorites. Like, everyone knows if you're not going to choose an NFC West favorite to be the Niners, then it's likely the Rams, because they still have Matt Stafford at quarterback. And I know they're missing Aaron Donald, but they're still a pretty damn good team.
No Murders Jones.
You'd probably have to put the Rams on top of the Seahawks in that point. I'm not listening to that part. But when he's talking about the 2017 and 2018 Saints, talking about what the energy was like the next season, comparing that to the 49ers, I think there's some validity to that. But hey, no, he got catfished once and thought that he brought someone back from the dead using his voice through a phone call and all those different things. So he's not allowed to have an opinion.
I mean, it is tough. It is tough when you are known for one thing your entire life, and then you're trying to get away from that. I get it. It's not fair. I think that's how a lot of people remember him and made fun of him for the longest time. And then
It's why
Netflix
you can't open up on sports radio, because if you open up and you say something and reveal something from your past that's extremely embarrassing, then people aren't going to remember your takes. They're going to remember that for the rest of your.
It depends, but the Manti Te'o thing was very public. It was the biggest. It was the biggest story in college sports.
That's
that he.
factual.
Yes, and I don't blame him for any of that. To be completely honest, I think that. I mean, we're going down this thing of Manti Te'o. It's not about that. It's just he had a very valid point, and I think that is true, Stephen. So if he is referencing the Saints, then that's a good argument to be had. But
that's all he needed.
Don't tell me the preseason games is where you saw that this team is emotionally distressed. I think that's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's not far off. I don't think that's a bad opinion. So I'll ask you, Stephen, Monday night, week 1, Jets at 49ers. Which of these 3 holdout players are playing? Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, or Hassan Reddick?
I would think that both Ayuk and Williams I don't know what's happening with Reddick, to be honest. I looked at it. At
that one.
Doesn't seem to be much happening there. So I would say week 1, it is going to be Williams and Ayuk suiting up. Ayuk's not going to play that much. I think Williams is going to be playing on the left side and instantly plugged and played, because they don't have any other option at that position. I don't think Kyle Shanahan wants to navigate a season without Trent Williams at left tackle. Trent Williams is such a big part of this team. And you heard Shanahan earlier today. He said, we are practicing and preparing as if we are going to be without those guys, which you cannot hear from a guy like Shanahan. And that's where I wonder how the players react to this. One of the things I wanted to say on this pod, because I've been listening to a lot of his interviews for a majority of this offseason, I just want to, and actually, you know what? I'm going to lump in Fred Warner and Deebo Samuel in with this as well. But George Kittle has done such an excellent job of doing damage control throughout his time with the 49ers. It has been such a rocky offseason every year. He's always getting questioned with things, and he manages to create this idea that there's no bad blood with us and this guy. Like, this football, we know you only have so much time in football. We love playing football. He always mentioned, he's just always like, take advantage of your opportunity, always playing football. He says that a lot, but they have no problem with their teammates getting paid. They have no problem with those guys wanting to hold out for a new contract. But how does it impact them when it impacts the game plan? How does it impact them when they're going through walkthroughs? Then all of a sudden Ayuk just shows up and everything is thrown out of whack. Like, I just wonder how they'll react to that, because this is now when it's starting to impact them. It's not just nah, let this guy deal with what he has to deal with. The team can deal with that. We'll do our thing and we'll welcome him with open arms. Okay, sure. But you welcome him with open arms and then all of a sudden people are confused on where they should be or what they should be doing just because you got this new player on your team, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder. I'm not saying it's going to impact them like that because I don't know. But Fred Warner and Deebo Samuel had done a pretty good job too. But George Kittle's just been like all over. He's been on. He was on Pat McAfee show recently. He's obviously buddies with Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. So he's been on Bussin' with the Boys. He's in the public eye. He was on the Receiver show. People want to talk to Kittle. I just think the 49ers are so lucky to have that guy, because if you listen to that guy talk and you don't really pay attention to kind of the drama surrounding that, you'd think there wouldn't be any.
Yeah.
You really would. You really wouldn't. So shout out to him. I don't know where I was going with that.
No. I mean, I hear you, because it's part of the bullshit that all the players have to deal with. Like Deebo Samuel was on the NFL Insider show yesterday, and of course they have to ask him about Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
So you think that Trent Williams and
Yes,
Brandon Ayuk will be there week 1? Are they both paid?
I think Williams will be. I don't think Ayuk will be.
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to be willing to pay on that 5th-year option, which, I mean, he shouldn't have a say in that, but that's the way it is. To answer my question,
we may not have seen linemen play at a Hall of Fame level into their late 30s, but we've certainly seen it.
yeah.
So I think that could happen.
No.
Jason Peters is a prime example.
Yeah, and Trent hasn't showed any signs of slowing down, so
Not at all.
I do think they're going to I do think they're going to sign Trent Williams to a new contract. I do think that's going to happen before the season starts. I don't know about Ayuk. So the only person I could say with confidence that's going to play week 1 is Trent Williams. That's the only one I feel confident in. I don't know if Brandon Ayuk is going to be on this team come next week. Like, the fact that the trades are still on the table, I wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility that Kyle and John are just so over this and they want this team to move forward. Like, I saw the clip of Sean McVay where he never gets feisty with the media, but it happened yesterday because for whatever reason, I don't know the details, they felt compelled that they had to trade Ernest Jones, their middle linebacker, who's a stud, to the Tennessee Titans. And he was going into the final year of his deal, and he wanted to negotiate. And then you see today when he got traded to Tennessee, he says, I was all willing to play for the Rams this year and then go leave in free agency. But the Rams decided otherwise, so they traded me. When Sean McVay is interviewed by a Rams reporter saying, you said this is good for the team. Is it good for the here and now, or is it good for the long haul? And he's like, wait, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say? What's your question? The guy's like, no, I'm just asking, like, is it good for the team now, or is it good for the future? It's for both. And he's like, okay. And then Sean's like, you guys are funny, man. You guys are funny. Let's hurry this up. It's the only time I've ever seen Sean McVay get feisty with the media because he wants to be a media darling. He wants to be on TV in the future. I think he just got frustrated with whatever was going behind the scenes with Ernest Jones. I think there'll come a point where Kyle and John don't want their football team to go under this year, so they have to make a move on Ayuk. So I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if they end up trading him by next week. I also wouldn't be surprised if they sign him because this fucking thing is all over the place. So
yeah, I for the sake of Andrew Filipponi from 93.7 The Fan, whose reputation has been on the line throughout this process, I hope that Ayuk gets traded by September 7th to the Steelers, just so my man, the Pony Express, can get some validation and give a middle finger to all of you doubters like you who said, who is this guy? Who is this guy in Pittsburgh who just so happens to have 100,000 followers? Who is this guy?
You best believe if Ayuk signs with the Niners, I have it ready in my phone, Steven. His tweet about him being traded to the Steelers, that'll be plastered all over Twitter. Don't you worry.
Oh, it will. So I hope for my man, Andrew Filipponi, who has done nothing wrong except give a take or an opinion citing sources that he's built.
It's not a take. It's a report at that point. You're not a radio host.
I hope it happens for him.
Well, I'll tell you what.
Side.
Don't worry about Andrew Filipponi because there's enough egg on Greg Papa's face today. He's gonna practice, John. Never mind. Ooh, I'm out of here. Show's over at 2. I'm gone.
See, Filipponi, didn't Lund say he's not credible? See, there's a bunch of that going around here.
Well, Lund has Pittsburgh ties. That's a different deal.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Lund used to do radio in Pittsburgh.
Gotcha. All right.
I don't know if he knows him or anything. I shouldn't say anything, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just waiting for this thing to be over, man. I am, because I don't feel like we're enjoying the eve of football enough. It feels like we're just too stuck on contracts. And the same thing with Jamar Chase. He goes to practice on Monday, and then today he is in street clothes. And Zach Taylor's like, yeah, I don't know anymore. It's like, Jamar, you are going to get paid. You got 2 more years on that contract. He will be eventually the highest paid wide receiver in football. I have no doubts about that.
Who's we? Like, who's we in this thing that you're talking to? Because
are you excited about the start of football?
I told you last week I am. Yes.
I mean, I am too. I just, maybe it's me working in this job and consumed by Ayuk every day where I'm just like, I just want to us talk about football. And we're not there yet.
I'm there. I'm ready to talk.
No,
football.
I know. I mean, you and me are, but the sports media world, until this Ayuk thing gets resolved, we're not there yet. We're not.
It's sports media, dude. This is what we do. This is what we do leading up to a season. It's never been about the actual games until games are played.
Yeah. Well,
or the day before. The day before the games is when it's actually about the games. Like, dude, I mean, it's going to be all the talk on the Friday, and all the game talk is going to be on Monday.
True. Let's just hope it gets resolved before then. I don't have any.
Did they get the deal done? Did they get the deal done at Secret Pizza and Cosmopolitan, John? You've been spending too much time at Egg Slut, John.
Did they go to CC's Pizza, John? You know, Jameis Winston's a big fan of CC's. I did like that clip of him in the pregame huddle. I would have laughed because I definitely was that kid in middle school and high school after a football game or whatever, trying to eat as much CC's pizza as I could.
I think when your dad and Lund hit their stride, they're making jokes about like different places in different areas. Did they get dinner at the St. Regis Hotel? Like,
God, everyone has a different variation of a Greg Papa impression.
Yeah,
because the one at KNBR that everybody just copied Copes is, of course, just it sounds like John Lovitz from The Wedding Singer, just like, John, have they done this? Have they done that with Ayuk? Did Tana Mordecai make the practice squad? He could win the Super Bowl for the Niners. And then yours is like, hey, John.
I can't do an impression of your dad. No one could do an impression of him because he's got such a goddamn iconic voice. That's the Godfather. Ernie, do I know about CC's? Of course I know about CC's. Those commercials were fire.
CC's Pizza.
And then AJ Cruz, did you say Egg Slut? Nice guy. I did. Go to this Egg Slut one day. It's in LA. They have one at the Cosmopolitan in Vegas, right next to the Secret Pizza, actually. I was using a Greg Papa impression based off what I know and the places I know. Egg Slut always has a super long line, but get the Fairfax sandwich. And thank me later, AJ, once you go to Egg Slut.
There you go, Egg Slut. Official sponsor of Just Your Opinion, man.
Yeah. That'd be awesome, dude. We just eat egg sandwiches all day.
I'd be down for that.
Who's your eggiest slut of the week?
That'll be a great segment. All right, let's talk about some actual football.
Sorry, hang on, Ernie. I haven't had CC's. I've only seen the commercials. I haven't had CC's.
It was good. It's good pizza. Raiders. There's really no controversy with them right now, thank God. Just whether or not the quarterback situation is going to be good enough. That's basically it. And Devontae Adams, we'll see, but it's not an issue at the moment. What kind of is an issue I've noticed? Have you noticed this too, Stephen? Brock Bowers hasn't been around for a while.
Yeah,
wasn't at practice today. What's the deal with that?
Yeah, he's been hurt. He's been dealing with a foot injury.
He needs to be out there.
Yeah, he does. He is going to be an integral piece of this offense. They need it.
Because I tell you what, if you didn't draft a quarterback and he's not playing and that was the draft pick, he needs to be there.
Yes, 100%. I think the one thing that's caught up, and I don't know if you've seen it, Derek, but looks like my maybe too early sweeping proclamation about Tyree Wilson. Well, it looks like that's hit a lot of Raider fans because he doesn't look like he's shown much improvement in the preseason. He's getting pushed around. He's still getting off. His get off is incredibly slow. It doesn't look like he's developed into anything. And really, it looks like they made the wrong pick at number 7. What I was looking back at the draft, it's not like there's any other edge rushers that they could have taken above him because he was like the first one taken off the board. But they could have gone somewhere else with that pick, and it's not a great look for the old regime.
Yeah, well, that was not a Tom Telesco pick, so they can at least say that he wasn't their type of player. Let's just see, Steven. I hear you, but let's see week 1.
No, I know, but that's been the talk. That's been the talk around the Raiders social media rumbling.
Okay.
It's should they trade him? They were talking about that. Not cutting him, obviously, but there's also some who feel, dude, he's a top 10 pick in just his second year. Give it some time. So I'm willing to hear that, but I think there's going to be a microscope on him now.
I hear that. I'll keep an eye on him when we start the season. You know, I'm sure Malcolm Kuntz will be the guy that's in there opposite Max Crosby to start. But
yeah, Kuntz is going to be that guy. The question is like where Wilson fits. If he's just going to be used as like a third down specialist when, you know, maybe you're in your dime package and you can bring an extra lineman out onto the field. I don't know what his role on the team is going to be. I think that's what everyone's kind of questioning because Kuntz has been good, man. I think Kuntz is a really solid player that's kind of unknown.
Yeah, no, he has looked good last year. So yeah, we'll see how the Raiders defensive unit pans out this season. And, you know, they picked up Holmes. I want to say Denary Holmes. I want to say his name is the corner, the defensive back for the New York Giants from a year ago. He knows it for Patrick Graham. I could be wrong on his name. I'll look it up here in a second. But you know, they got a young secondary. Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones, and who was the guy you were talking about last time, Stephen? Jacarius Bennett. Jacorian Bennett. They got young guys, Trayvon Merrick. So I was thinking maybe they needed to upgrade and get a veteran player in the secondary, but they missed out on Stephon Gilmore, and I don't know if they missed out on him. They just didn't go after him. Doesn't seem like anybody's interested in Xavier Howard. So yeah, I think the Raiders defense will be good this year. It's just a matter of the quarterback position, the offense.
They really need them to stay healthy because I think the biggest issue with this team is not the team you see on paper in the starting 11, both offense and defense. It's the depth. I don't know what to think.
Darnay Holmes.
Gotcha.
Signs with the Raiders today.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of their depth because there's not a lot of it, especially in the defensive side.
Yeah. All right, let's do our division previews.
Yes.
And we're to get to the AFC East and NFC East tonight. And we're going to end this with the Wests, I think, next podcast we do. Mm-hmm. And should let everybody know that we're going to do our usual preview show this Tuesday before the season starts. So we'll pick all the division winners, who we think is going to the Super Bowl, all that stuff. And I'll say this too. This is why also I want this Ayuk thing to be resolved. We have a guest in the holster, but he's going to come on as soon as that is resolved. And I won't say who it is, but let's just say he might like hot cocoa. Okay. For the division preview, let's get to the AFC East first. And obviously, this was the Bills' division for the longest time, and they made big moves this offseason. So just start with the Bills. What I liked of what they did this offseason is they got another playmaker in Curtis Samuel. I think that he's a good player. Not a number one, but he would have been a complimentary, wide receiver opposite Stephon Diggs. But they traded away Stephon Diggs. They kind of replaced him with Keon Coleman, that big body receiver from Florida State, and he's been a soundbite machine this offseason. The biggest question mark we have with the Bills is just everything that they all the players they got rid of. Stephon Diggs, was he a locker room cancer? I don't know what the details with that. Doesn't sound like we'll never know what happened between him and Josh Allen, but they decided to move off from him. They moved off of Gabriel Davis. They moved off of their safeties, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. Matt Milano was supposed to come back and be that leader of the defense again, and he tore his bicep in preseason, so he won't be back until the playoffs probably. They move on from Tre'Davious White. I still think they're going to be a really good team. It's just going to be a big transition year. Like, basically what's in front of Josh Allen this season is he has to do the Patrick Mahomes thing of 2 years ago. They got rid of Tyreek Hill, and Mahomes had to put the team on his back. He still had Kelsey, but he had a lackluster wide receiving core, and he had to carry them. Is Josh Allen the type of quarterback that can do the same thing this year? That's the biggest question mark for me.
There's a lot. Number one, let me just talk about Keon Coleman real quick. You saw that clip I sent you, right?
Yes, the Bills. They were. Yeah, what was the context again? I saw it. I definitely saw it.
So the question, the thing, like I think they posted like the social media people for teams. They have like a whiteboard and they write like a question on the whiteboard. And after practice, the players walk up to that whiteboard, they answer the question, then they move on. Well, I think the question, or rather the statement on the board, was name a random basketball player. And so Keon Coleman, he sees that and he is just holding court right in front of the camera. And he just kept on naming a bunch of Miami Heat players. It's pretty clear he only watches the Miami Heat and some of the Eastern Conference. Like, all he could name is Miami Heat players. Like, they weren't that interesting. But I need him and KJ Hamler, the other wide receiver. I need them mic'd up. I need them mic'd up this year at some point. I'm not saying every week, but I need to see Keon Coleman and KJ Hamler mic'd up just one time for the one time. Because
did KJ Hamler make the team?
I don't know. I haven't even looked. Probably not.
I don't think he did.
Oh, that's a shame. Because those two just sitting there, he's like, they were just naming basketball players, and some guy, KJ Hamler's a kind of really small dude, right? He's a little shorter in stature, and some big ass offensive lineman goes to the camera and starts naming players. And then KJ Hamler's like, "Wait, what are you talking about? That ain't a good one. What you talking about? Yao Ming." And he gets all pissed, and he's looking at each player just as they're naming basketball players. I'm not explaining it very well, but god damn it, did they make me laugh. So I love that. Did he make the team?
He did. He's on their practice squad.
Ah, damn it.
But you know what? Right. You know what? Can I interest you in a Matt Collins?
No.
Not a Matt Collins guy?
Interesting, but he's not like funny. I need someone who's going to make me laugh.
I listen to him.
I don't need someone who's going to tell me all the secrets to my washing machine.
Is that what Matt Collins does?
Yes. He does this thing on social media. Let me teach you about washing machines. And then he gives you a bunch of fun facts about washing machines.
Okay,
Let me teach you about the benefits of walking barefoot.
Yeah, okay. See, so I listened to an interview he did with Chris Long. And he basically is all about walking barefoot and not using utensils when he eats. He's a very weird guy.
Yeah.
But I did come away being like, I like this guy.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a like, I don't know why I felt this way, but just listening to him, I'm like, you know what? I think the Bills are going to be all right because they seem like they all get along and they have team camaraderie. Matt Collins was on that Eagles team that Chris Long won in 2017, the Super Bowl team. And they were just laid back. They all got along. I think, honestly, with Stephon Diggs leaving, I think they're going to be a very more chill group. Like, no one's going to, like, even though Stephon Diggs was a great player, you got Keon Coleman, who's funny. You got Josh Allen, who could be a goof. And not the whole point is not to be the funniest team ever. But if you're all laid back and chill and can, bust on, your friends and have a good time with everybody, I think that brings a lot more camaraderie. I think it's better camaraderie than getting trapped in an elevator that Jim Harbaugh was going to make that a thing. Like, Jesus, Jim, they almost died in the elevator. Don't make that like a, oh, man, these guys, I tell you, man.
Yeah.
I mean, Justin Herbert, he's going to be MVP this year. He's a rock. He let those guys out of the elevator. It's fantastic. It's like the opening is Speed. You guys seen Speed? They weren't on the bus, but the elevator, that opening scene.
It's a weird dude.
He is.
So what I like about the Bills, though, I like the makeup of their offensive line, specifically the left side. They got David Edwards and Deion Dawkins, and I think those are two extremely talented players. So I'm excited to see what that left side of the line looks like. I mean, they might be like the 49ers, where a majority of their plays is based on what they could do on the left side of that offensive line and getting pushed there. So I'm interested to see that. I like the addition of Curtis Samuel. I think that's kind of a weird sort of one to like, but they signed him to a 3-year contract, and he's been in Washington, where, I mean, that organization it's Washington. Like, he's been through a lot with that organization. So I'm very interested to see what Curtis Samuel is going to look like there in Buffalo with a good quarterback. And another thing that I have a question about, because I love Jordan Poyer. I think Jordan Poyer is just, I think he's a world-class player and one of the best in the league. But what's happening with Micah Hyde? They still haven't signed him to a deal. He's a free agent.
Yeah.
Like, those two were a dynamic duo. What's going to go on with that? And is Jordan Poyer even on the Bills anymore? Wasn't he a free agent?
No, he's not on the Bills. He's not on any team. The Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde, while they were a good tandem for a while, they are older.
Yeah. So I guess my question is, what's that going to look like? You look down
the
the
rookie, I think, in the secondary now playing safety,
and Damar Hamlin's listed as their starting free safety now, and I don't know how good.
We all know the name, but I don't know if he's a great player.
Right. So plenty of questions there, and another thing, I believe he got hurt earlier. Yeah. Matt Milano.
Yeah,
he's on injured reserve.
I just said that, Steven.
Sorry. And so
I know you too, Mion.
There's a lot of questions around the quarterback, I'm sure, but is that defense going to be able to hold up?
Yeah. I mean, I do like Joe Brady as the offensive play caller going forward. I always liked him when he was Joe Burrow's guy at LSU. He was a weird dynamic between him and Matt Rule in Carolina. But I think that's the best situation going forward. I wasn't a Ken Dorsey guy. I thought there was no rhythm or rhyme to their offense, and now I think they have a better play caller there. But yeah, there are a lot of question marks. This will be a big season for the Bills if Josh Allen could carry that team. But I still like them more than these other teams. So going through the rest of them.
Well, hang on. Well, real quick.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you agree with that ESPN player poll that surveyed
that Josh Allen's overrated?
Yeah, they put him as the most overrated quarterback.
No.
You don't think so?
No, because Josh is good. He is turnover prone. But would I take him over Lamar Jackson? Absolutely, I would.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, man.
He could still sling it. I mean, yes. Like, does Matthew Stafford throw a lot of picks? Absolutely. But when he's on, he's on. Like, there will be a day, and maybe it will be this season, there will be a day that Josh Allen beats Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. I truly believe that. I can't say the same thing for Lamar Jackson.
God, I don't know. That's a tough one. I view them both in the same way that I do. They're both extremely athletic, and I think they're really good at using both of their strengths, but I don't think their decision making is always the best. I think sometimes Lamar relies on his legs a little too much, even though, I mean, when you're faster than everyone on the field, why wouldn't you? But you can't do that as a quarterback. Whereas Allen tends to make boneheaded decisions that lead to those interceptions. But at the same time, God, his arm is as strong as anyone's in the league. I find it interesting, though, that they named him the most overrated quarterback.
Yeah, I found that interesting, too. I would have thought Purdy may have been in that category, but I don't know what he's properly rated these days.
Oh, he's underrated, according to them.
Interesting. Well, he moved up in Sando's QB tiers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, he's on, like, what, the 2, right? Tier 2?
Yeah, the 2. The 2. And even listening to Josh Allen on Chris Long's podcast, I think he's more loose this year. Like, in years past, like, I don't know if Stephon Diggs just made him uptight because he held him to a higher standard. But, he seems more laid back. The funny thing, though, was Chris Long asked Josh Allen, what's the biggest throw you regret? And he's like, I don't think I've had one in recent years. And I'm like, Josh, really? Like, there's been quite a few, but okay. And I think that's just his mentality. That was like, I'm a gunslinger. I mean, you are going to get me throwing 5 touchdowns. You'll probably get me throwing 3 picks along with it. And you know what? While that is annoying at times, you and I both were like, yeah, Joe Flacco last year. Yeah, he's going to throw like a bunch of yards and touchdowns and then throw a shit ton of picks. That's just old school football, baby.
Didn't involve the picks thing.
Yeah, well, yeah, we did. It's like you're playing on Madden back in the day. It's like, oh yeah, 6 touchdowns. Forget the 4 picks that I threw to. Just hug it, chug it, football. All right, Dolphins. With the Dolphins, they didn't lose any real big playmakers. They got the same offense from a year ago. They paid Tua, maybe a little overpay on that part, but they paid him. He's their long-term future quarterback. They got the running back still, Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert, and still Jeff Wilson Jr. They got the receivers. They paid Tyreek Hill. They paid Jalen Waddle. They got a tight end finally in Jonnu Smith. Odell Beckham Jr. is there, but he'll be on PUP, so he won't be there for the first 4 weeks. The biggest question mark for me is their defense is riddled with injuries. They lost Andrew Van Ginkel. He went to the Vikings, but their pass rushers from a year ago, Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, are both hurt. Phillips is off PUP. He's going to start the season. Bradley Chubb will stay on PUP. He'll miss the first 4 games. They try to replace or just get some pass rush with Shaq Barrett, but he retired. They drafted Chop Robinson. So they're trying to find ways to get the pass rush. They got older players like Calais Campbell coming back for like his 16th year in the league. They got a new defensive coordinator. I think that the Dolphins, the biggest question mark always with them is, are they going to be good in December? That's it. They're a warm weather team. They score a shit ton of points. I have no problems with them offensively. It's defensively where I don't know if they have enough pass rush anymore and all the injuries. And just, are they going to piss down their leg when it comes to the end of their schedule?
I think there's one guy you didn't mention. I'm interested to see Chop Robinson out of
I did
Penn
mention
State.
him.
You did? Jesus, did you really?
God, you're just tuning me out tonight. Good Lord.
Yes, I am. I think that dude has a lot of potential. And I've looked up highlights, and for whatever reason, I was paying attention to him a lot during the Senior Bowl because he was potentially going to go to the Niners, and they might have drafted him. So I was doing like a little deep dive, and he was drawing a lot of praise from everyone who was analyzing that game, doing their evaluations. And they said Chop could be a steal if you get him late in the draft or in the second round. And so I'm interested to see how that works out. My concern with this team, it's Tua. Like, at the end of the day, it's Tua. I know he's kind of been on this revenge tour and this whole Brian Flores thing. Like, I don't think there's been any quarterback that we're as empathetic with than we are with Tua. Like, it's time to show out now. And the fact that they are paying their 2 wide receivers and you this amount of money, or at least will be in new money eventually down the line. Yeah. Like, this is the year where the Bills, like, the expectations, they're not that high. You got this up and coming signal caller and Mike McDaniel. It's time for them to show out. But at the same time, Tua is the one that I was concerned with because I think you made great points on him last year. And because of those great points, I was watching out for it. The scheduled plays where everything is being executed, top-notch quarterback. Really, he could be as accurate as he wants. But when plays are off schedule, when you're done with the script and now you're moving on into the real game, but if you get a little pressure on you, you can escape that pressure. He's shown some escapability before, but when he throws the ball downfield, it's there's something different with his passes whenever he is under pressure, or at least has to make a play on the scramble drill. So I wonder what he's going to look like there. I guess that's like my biggest concern, especially when you got those wide receivers, is what's he going to look like in those plays that kind of blow up in his face. And the defense, I never really know with the defense. They get, I mean, you mentioned getting Jalen Phillips back is a big thing. And I understand why there's questions around with the injuries and all that. And not having Christian Wilkins there is going to be interesting. They did a lot of they did a lot of stunts and did a lot of those different things where he was a big part of that. It's actually what I'm really looking forward to with the Raiders. So I don't really know what to make of that defense. I guess it's just the offense that's my biggest concern. Though I love their receivers, I love their run game, and I mean if you watch any of their offense, when it is going according to plan, it's just like watching the 49ers. Like you're seeing a lot of fullback movement. You're seeing a lot of Alec Ingold and utilizing him in the motion game so that Tua can read the defenses. They're a lot of fun to watch, but can Tua actually excel when things might blow up on him?
Yeah, no, that's the biggest thing this year is Tua's finally paid, and just will he live up to expectations? The most hyped up team a year ago was the New York Jets. And then Aaron Rodgers tore his Achilles 4 snaps into the new season, and it was a bummer. And now it's basically make or break for them this season, I think. If Rodgers doesn't pan out, if this whole team doesn't pan out, then probably Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas are on the chopping block. And I always thought that their offensive line a year ago was a ticking time bomb to get Aaron Rodgers hurt. I just didn't anticipate it was going to be that soon. And I love that they addressed it this year because they had to. They go get Tyron Smith, longtime left tackle with the Cowboys. They get who's my guy that was with the Ravens? I forget his name, but he was the right tackle for a while.
Morgan Moses.
Morgan Moses. Thank you, Steven. And then they got, I'm not going to pronounce his name. I forget it now, but the Penn State offensive tackle they drafted in the first round.
Becton.
Not Mekhi Becton, no. He used to be there, but now he's with the Eagles, Mekhi Becton. Olu Fashanu, I want to say his name. Olu Fashanu?
That sounds right.
No, wait, no. Olu Fashanu is with the Saints. There's a guy from Penn State they drafted. I'll look it up here in a second, but they definitely improved their offensive line. So I think that what they needed to do a year ago, they finally have done. And then, they added to the wide receiving core. They got Mike Williams from the Chargers. They got Malachi Corley, I think his name is, who was like the new Debo in the draft. They traded for Hassan Reddick, and that should be a great move if the man decides to play football. I think their defense could be the best in football. I think it was very good a year ago, and they just had no offense. This team has the potential to be really good. I just don't know what the hell we're getting in Aaron Rodgers a year removed from an Achilles. That is a huge question mark to me. At 41 years old, they were all hyped up a year ago, and now I think people are very skeptical about them going forward because of the injury.
I think it goes without saying that Aaron Rodgers coming off that injury is the number one thing. But with this newly minted offensive line, is that going to be what opens things up for a guy like Breece Hall, who was fantastic and, cousin of Roger Craig, looked up to Christian McCaffrey and kind of emulates what Christian McCaffrey tries to do. Breece Hall set high expectations for himself this year, and kind of hearing him talk during his press conferences and the way that he puts it is like he feels he could be the best in the NFL. So beyond Aaron Rodgers, like if you get, like, think about it. Let's just say Aaron Rodgers doesn't look hindered by this injury, right? You got Aaron Rodgers, you got a number one player in Garrett Wilson, and you got one of the top running backs in the league in Breece Hall. Like, that's going to be a dynamic team. And you mentioned the defense already. That almost goes without saying. That's the only team that blitzed fewer than 100 times last year. Robert Saleh, it's very much it's kind of like Mike McDaniel with Dolphins bringing the 49ers offense to Miami. He brought that 49ers defense to New York. And just like Fred Warner is kind of the engine that makes the thing go, CJ Mosley
is that guy. And
Yeah.
along the defensive line, Javon Kinlaw is beefed up, obviously. Quinnen Williams is Quinnen Williams. The dude's a dog. I'm not sure what's happening with Will McDonald. I haven't really heard his name too much. I don't know if he's hurt or what. I was looking it up earlier, and I don't know what's happening with him.
Yeah, their first round pick from a year ago.
Yeah. And then you got Sauce on the outside, who is legit, as good of a corner as they've had since Darrelle Revis, and he's probably the best in the league. So
yeah,
you got blue chip players all over the field. And if Aaron Rodgers pans out, like, we're talking a 12, 13 win team here.
Yeah. But if he doesn't, then it's back to looking like last year.
Right. And it feels like that is the big concern. And to be honest, Derek, like, I don't know. I wish I could take stuff from last year and watching their games and carry it into this year. I wasn't watching a lot of Jet games last year. I wasn't interested when they didn't have the quarterback. And, that's why I think like Garrett Wilson's season kind of went underappreciated because though it wasn't the type of season he could have with a future Hall of Famer, he was kind of playing with scrubs, still had a pretty damn good season. I think he eclipsed 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
I think we kind of forget how good these guys actually are.
No, I mean, they'll be very good. I think, and even if Aaron Rodgers is not who he used to be, I still think they'll be good. Because while I don't think he'll be Peyton Manning that last year in Denver when they won the Super Bowl, if they just get any competent quarterback play, I think they're a playoff team. Because I think that defense is that good. So if they could put up 20 points a game, I think that's all they need, really.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like you said, man, that defense is going to be ferocious this year. I think just everything that's been going on. I know that the vibes were as high as they've ever been last year after Hard Knocks and going into the season. But my God, if you get a win against the 49ers at Levi Stadium, that just sets the tone for the entire year. I think it's huge.
I think so too. And let's address the elephant in the room. If they are playing very well by the trade deadline, I do not put it past them to say, let's go all in. Let's not even fuck around. Let's offer a first-round pick for Devontae, which I don't think the Raiders would pass up.
No, I don't think they would.
Yep. And then lastly, this team might be the worst team in football, but it could be interesting as well. The New England Patriots, which is hard to say after so many years of dominance. But you look on paper, it'll be hard to see this team win maybe 3 or 4 games, to be completely honest. There's just a lot of raw talent, but they're young players. There's so many question marks with this team. It's unfair to just pick one thing. The biggest thing is Drake May. And I was watching that preseason game the other night against the Commanders. And initially, my reaction to Drake May starting was, you don't want to do that. And then, just like Chris Collinsworth, it might have been Collinsworth hyping him up, but just watching him make those plays, I was like, he actually can move a little bit. And it's not as choreographed as I thought it was going to be. It's not as awkward as I thought it was going to be. He can make some plays on his own. I know that the offensive line sucks, and that's the biggest thing that everybody's like, don't get him beat up. But eventually that's going to happen. Everybody got beat up. David Carr got sacked 76 times. You don't want it to be like a Bryce Young thing where you just look terrible. And hopefully Bryce Young bounces back this year. But if we're up to me, I mean, Gerard Mayo let it be known that Drake May outplayed Jacoby Brissett. Yeah, I probably would start Drake May. Just to give, like, if he looked like dog shit in the preseason, I'd be like, don't even bother. But he did make plays. Like that one, I know it didn't count because there was like a legal forward motion or whatever the play call was, or the penalty was. But the play where, I don't know if you saw it, Steven, where Drake May like eludes the rush and scrambles, throws all the way across the field to the wide open wide receiver for a touchdown. Mm-hmm. So this guy can improvise. So it may look ugly the first year, but yeah, I would probably start Drake May this year.
I would too. You're right though. There's not a lot to like on this team. I guess maybe the secondary. One guy who didn't get his chance last year, whose season ended, I think like 4 weeks into the season. Christian Gonzalez. He's a stud. Watched a lot of him at Oregon. He's a beast.
So I think they got something there. Then Jonathan Jones on the other side, Jabril Peppers at safety. Like their secondary, and Kyle Duggar as well.
Yeah.
Their secondary is not terrible, but it's the rest of the team. And you could put Drake May under center, and I'm hearing that whole thing with the offensive line, but I'm also inclined to think that the best way to develop a young quarterback is to play him. And I think Drake May is in this perfect position here. I don't think there's going to be any benefit of starting anyone else over him in New England. I mean, I guess you could start Brissett, but I don't know. I don't see any benefit to that. And the hell's going on with their wide receivers? I don't know who they got at wide receiver.
KJ Osborne, Kedrick Bourne is on the PUP list for the first 4 years. I mean, Brandon Ayuk would have been obviously their best wide receiver, but I think it was smart for him not to want to go there.
Oh my God.
Real quick, before we get to the NFC East, speaking of Patriots, former Patriots quarterback Tom Brady, did you see that the NFL owners came to an agreement that if Brady is going to be a minority owner with the Raiders, while he is a commentator, he is not allowed to go to he's not allowed to go to practices when he is commentating, and he's not allowed to do in-person interviews with the opposing players. I think that's fair. I actually understand the owner's trepidation of him. While he is a minority owner, he's not the majority owner. He still is tied to a team. It would be a bad look if he gets intel on other teams while he's at their practices. So I do agree with it. I think that's fair.
I think it is. Just, hey, Tom, you can't have it all. All
Yeah.
right. Can't be the greatest quarterback of all time. You can't be a part owner of a team. You can't be getting paid 10 years, $1,000 or $100 billion to broadcast as the top team on Fox in your first year in the industry. Can't have it all, Tom. You got to give up something. Like, I don't know. Would he really want to give up ownership if he wants to, actually do his job correctly? Like, that's going to be super awkward with Kevin Burkhardt. I talked to this guy in this meeting room. Well, I did, but I wanted to be a minority owner of the team. That's my Tom Brady impression.
Yeah, I was about to say, Jesus. His balls cut off?
You can't have everything, Tom. You can't be a social media influencer. No one cares about your 72 hours in Paris.
Sounds like someone's just jealous. All right, NFC East.
Tired of this guy.
NFC East. Let's start with the Eagles. So we all know how the season ended a year ago. They were 10-1, and then they just shit the bed. And there's rumors of, just a rift between Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni. The defense looked like shit towards the end. Sirianni blaming the coordinators. He gets to keep his job. He gets new coordinators, and the guy he wanted to hire all along, a defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, and he gets Kellen Moore to run his offense. And now he's basically the CEO coach. So that's interesting to me that Sirianni was pegged as this offensive guru when he came over from the Colts, and now he's basically has to be just the guy to run the team, be a leader of men, and hopefully not act like a jackass on the sidelines, which he usually does. As far as the team, they lose two huge leaders in the trenches, Jason Kelsey and Fletcher Cox. Those guys are gone. They retired. I thought they made good upgrades this offseason. I like getting Saquon Barkley. I always thought that, in years past, Miles Sanders was DeAndre Swift was very good last year, but I think Saquon Barkley's an upgrade.
Should have played Rashad Penny. Idiots.
Yeah, I still don't understand that one. I like them getting.
That was the weirdest thing of our podcast last year. You kept on.
Well, dude, I drafted him on my fantasy team. I wanted them to fucking play Rashad Penny. I like them getting Bryce Huff from the Jets. I like them getting C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I like the draft picks they made and getting who was that guy? I forget his name. The defensive back they drafted, I thought he was the best. Quinyon Mitchell. I thought he was the best. I like Cooper DeJean. I'm surprised they hung on to James Bradbury. I think he's cooked, but whatever. He's there. And yeah, I think they're just a good team on paper. It's just, are they going to get past what happened a year ago? Are they going to have leadership on this team. Is Jalen Hurts, who has, I guess, been accused of being too soft-spoken, going to step up to be that leader?
I have a question on their linebackers. I think what really stood out to me last year was your points on Nicholas Morrow, and that's my favorite video that we posted in the few that I've managed to edit for this podcast.
It was a good one.
In the one where you were putting on a clinic of what to expect in the game, because the exact things you were talking about happened in the game. Yeah. And you gave very good reasons as to why the 49ers should beat the Eagles, yet you chose the Eagles to win.
Yeah, that was pretty that was pretty dumb on my part, where I was just like, I know how they're going to lose, but here's why I think the Eagles are going to win.
It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen with Devin White? I think he's going to be starting at linebacker, and obviously we know that
that's an upgrade too.
But he also had his issues in Tampa Bay and kind of fell off, and there was a lack of effort a lot of the time. You'd see the people posting clips where he'd just give up on a play. Can he do that in Philadelphia? I don't know. I think he'd get torn apart by the fans of those Eagles. And like you mentioned, with Mitchell playing the nickel corner, Isaiah Rodgers on the outside, and then CJ Gardner-Johnson's okay, but I think he kind of, I think he got sunned a little bit by the 49ers last year. So I think there's some question marks there, but I think Saquon Barkley is going to change everything for that offense. I know they obviously had the changes on the inside, but I really think Saquon's going to just like Jalen Hurts with a capable running back is a scary thought. But whether they can get things clicking again, where you don't got him going rogue on certain plays, where he doesn't look flustered, which you didn't see a lot of in Jalen Hurts during that MVP caliber season. But last year you saw it a lot. And you also saw that secondary getting picked on a lot too. So there's a lot looking out for with this team, but on paper, they should be very good as long as these coaches got these guys in line and Jalen Hurts can play like we know he can play. I don't know how I'm feeling really about the Eagles looking through it, because they kind of like change year after year. There's no constant.
I'll say this. I know Niner fans are going to hate this. I feel a little confident about the Eagles being the number 1 seed in the NFC more than I do with the Niners.
Wow, interesting.
I don't hear a lot of bullshit with them. There's so much going on with Ayuk with the Niners. I think the Niners lost a ton of guys on their defensive line. I question that. I do think the Eagles have more positivity going into the season than the Niners do.
Sure. I don't doubt that at all. But can they, like the Niners have shown that they can overcome that sort of stuff during the season, but can the Eagles? They said the 49ers was the turning point last year. Well, still had a few weeks to go after that. So,
yeah. And then there's the Dallas Cowboys. They ended up winning this division a year ago. And the biggest thing was they lost Dan Quinn, but they replaced him with Mike Zimmer, who I always thought was a good defensive coordinator. Not so much head coach down the stretch with the Vikings, but he did have very good seasons with them as well. They didn't do a lot this offseason. Everybody kept like, how the hell the Cowboys not going to pick up anybody in free agency? They couldn't because they have to pay their guys. And that's the biggest question mark, is just lame ducks all around. Like, yes, they just paid CeeDee Lamb. They had to do that one. But Micah Parsons, are they going to make him the richest defensive player in football? Are they going to make Dak Prescott the richest player in general in football? And is it worth it? If they have another ho-hum, non-NFC championship game season, then what are they going to do? And Mike McCarthy has a lame duck year. There's rumors about Bill Belichick or Mike Vrabel already. There's just too much noise with the Cowboys as well. And they're kind of the same vein as the Niners, where there's too many guys with contracts disputes. And everybody that needs to be in camp is in camp now, so that's rectified. But, Mike McCarthy's going to be looking over his shoulder the whole season. And if they don't make it to the NFC Championship game, I can't see him coming back. And I don't know what Dak needs to do in order to keep his job, or what's worth him getting $60 million a year. So I think on paper they look pretty good. They just Deron Bland, who had a shit ton of interceptions, pick sixes a year ago, was in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, kind of. He has a stress fracture in his foot, so he won't be back until I think November. But they're getting back Trayvon Diggs. They signed Dalvin Cook yesterday, or this morning I saw. That's a very old running back room. God,
oh my God. The thing that really got me yesterday was someone posted on X that video of when Jerry Rice and Dan Marino, and I think Emmitt Smith's in it too.
Oh yeah, commercial.
Yeah, and someone in the caption said when Dalvin Cook and Ezekiel Elliott meet in the locker room in the Dallas Cowboys locker room, and it's just like Jerry going, "There he is," and Dan Marino's like, "Ugh."
Yeah, it's a very old running back room between Zeke and Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
And Ernie 2 asks, who's RB1 for the Cowboys? I think it's Rico Dowdle.
Right now I'm seeing
Zeke. Keyshawn Vaughn.
Right now I'm seeing Zeke, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm the things you said about them not being able to spend in free agency because of all the money they okay, but this team has proven that they're not good enough. And I think it's kind of my laziest take that I really have on any NFL team. But the reality is, this Cowboys team could very well just be a regular season merchant where they're just looking like, Dak Prescott's throwing for 400 yards and Trayvon Diggs. And maybe when Deron Bland gets back, they look like one of the best secondaries in the league. Those guys are grabbing interceptions. CeeDee Lamb is making these miraculous catches where somehow he's leaning backwards and managing to catch the ball in midair. The way he's able to like contort his body in midair, I think it's second to none. That dude's a stud. He is. But it's to the detriment of their squad. And if you're going out there with mostly the same roster, with exception to a couple of different players, then what are we supposed to expect from the Cowboys other than a potential playoff appearance and then a loss come January?
Yeah.
I don't know what to, I really don't know. Cause I actually I think Dak gets a lot of hate for himself as a quarterback. I think a lot of the bad kind of outweighs the good for a lot of people, but God, when he is on, he is on. And now that they don't have anybody at running back either, Zeke and Dalvin, okay, but that's a stretch to say that those guys are going to change their team now. I don't know. I don't know with the Cowboys.
Yeah, no, I think they're a playoff team, but I don't know if they're in the upper echelon of the best NFC teams right now. So I think they're hampered by a lot of contracts, and we could see a whole new Cowboy team come next season. But for the here and now, I think they should be good. I don't know if they're NFC Championship game good, and I think that's what they'll be dictated by. So you could see the coach gone, you could see the QB gone, and Jared Jones will still be there.
Yeah. They got Zach Martin a lot. They still got Zach Martin at right guard though. I guess that's
they do. They do. They still got a pretty good offensive line. They're getting the new rookie Taylor Guyton playing left tackle now. There's New York Giants, who were on full display on the very fascinating offseason Hard Knocks. And you saw how they went through all the decisions of the offseason. Joe Shane was the star, so was Brian Daboll. They tried to upgrade a quarterback. They weren't able to do it. And that's a big question mark for me, is Daniel Jones knows that they were trying to either replace him or get him competition. And they were very interested in Drake May. And now they have to live with Daniel Jones being their guy. It's a make or break season for him. I did like them going after Brian Burns. They needed a good pass rusher, so I think it wasn't a bad decision to trade for him. I like the selection of Malik Neighbors. I think he's going to be a very good player. But everything else, I don't know. Like, while the Giants Hard Knock show was extremely entertaining, it might be detrimental to the people that run the organization going forward. Because if they're not good this year, then it's on full display of all the decisions they made. So while I do think Brian Dable's a good offensive play caller, he's on the hot seat. I think Joe Shane is extremely on the hot seat this offseason when you agree to do a show like that. And it's probably extremely unfair because they probably were forced to do it. But now everybody has this material to go back on with the Giants. So I don't think they're going to be very good. And when you're in New York, that's not good, especially to add this show with it as well. It's going to add a lot of fuel to the fire. So I think when you have a quarterback and a head coach and a GM all on the hot seat, I think that's a recipe for disaster. So I think that's what the Giants have this year.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting point. I think a lot of the additions they made, there's question marks all over. They drafted a tight end essentially who's going to replace Darren Waller. That's Theo Johnson. Obviously, they got Malik Neighbors, who's the one that everyone's talking about. Devin Singletary was signed as a free agent. People are trying to make bold predictions on him, but he could very well be usurped by their rookie, Tyrone Tracy. So it's looking like this is kind of a transition year, I guess, into this new era. And then there's Daniel Jones, who I just don't think he's a good quarterback. You know, you can have a chiseled jawline with a beard all he wants. I still don't think that's going to help him in throwing passes. And I think it's been a pretty underwhelming addition to their offensive line with two guys who used to be on the Raiders, and Greg Van Roten and Jermaine Illuminor, who now make up the right side of the Giants offensive line. So
yeah,
my hopes aren't too high for the Giants this year. I think this is going to be a team that you can pretty much run over if you want to. The only thing I love about this team, and I feel bad for this player because I think they're wasting his prime years, but it's Sexy Dexter Lawrence. I think that dude's, I think he's arguably the best defensive tackle in the game right now, now that Aaron Donald's gone. So
yeah,
I love him. And, I think Neighbors has huge upside, but it's like you said, everything that's going on with the coaching staff from top to bottom just doesn't feel right this season. So they're kind of in a transitional, weird year.
I agree with you there. And then finally, the Commanders. Look, they needed to get away from all of the bullshit of the who am I thinking of? Who's the old owner of the team?
Dan Snyder.
Dan Snyder. That was a year ago that Josh Harris has been owner. This will be his second season, and now he's making changes. They let go Ron Rivera, and it was time. They get Dan Quinn, who has been a solid head coach in this league before with the Atlanta Falcons, took it in the playoffs, but infamously blew that 28-3 lead. And I like Jaden Daniels. I think that he's going to be a good pro. There's just, I want him to not be entirely like Kyler Murray. I want him to. He's going to look to run a lot this year, probably, and then he probably could sling it. And I think getting Cliff Kingsbury, even though the Raiders were left at the altar with him, that's a very good move. That's the perfect offense for him. So I think it's just going to take some time. I don't know if Austin Eckler could play anymore, but he fits that scheme. So I think that's a good move there. They're getting a lot of good veterans on the defensive side of the football that Dan Quinn used to coach for, like Bobby Wagner when he's with the Seahawks. A lot of Dallas players are on the team. So there's a lot of promising things with the Commanders. And I'm not expecting them to be a playoff team, so there's not really stuff a lot I question. I guess the only thing I question was the trade they made last week. They traded away their first-round draft pick from 2 years ago to Jahan Dotson, who I thought was going to be a good slot receiver in their receiving core, and they trade him to the Eagles, which makes you believe they don't think very highly of him anymore if they're going to trade him inside division. But to me, I'm like, I hate in-division trades like that, especially with a young player. So he knows what the Commanders are doing this year. Then he goes to the Eagles. I think that's a good move for the Eagles. Pair him up with A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Yeah, I think the Commanders will be fine this year. And when I say fine, I mean they're growing. They'll be a 6-win team, 7-win team, maybe 8-win team. Who knows? But don't have high expectations for them. I just think they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think they're that trade was weird.
Yeah.
At least in division, it was strange. But but if you read up on it, like Dotson just wasn't fitting in with Kingsbury's scheme, so it just wasn't working out. Like they just wanted to trade him and get something in return. But yeah, it's an evaluation year, man. What do they got? Can they build around Jaden Daniels? And who cares about their win total at their floor? They're not going to be as bad as the Carolina Panthers were last year under Bryce Young. Like they have a little more talent than the Panthers do. They obviously got a new GM and new ownership, and they're trying to steer the ship in a new direction. And I understand all of that. I don't really have high expectations. The expectation is just prove you can compete. Prove you can compete with Jaden Daniels, make it an attractive destination, make it so players actually want to go there, improve on your NFLPA report card, which has always been in the Fs, if you're looking at that. So work on that magic and put that in your little Twitter X corny account. Why am I being so mean to Magic Johnson?
Well, we'll definitely get to him in a little bit here.
It's a building year, man, and they got a lot of pieces. I'm interested to see what their left tackle Brandon Coleman does. They drafted him in the 3rd round, instantly going to be a starter. Is he going to be one of those 3rd round steals out of TCU? I remember watching him a little bit, and he's a massive dude. Along the defensive line, obviously, it took a hit last year when they when they traded Montez Sweat away. Still got Deron Payne, still got Jonathan Allen, and Cleveland Ferrell getting his shot yet again, this time in Washington. So there's a little bit to like, and but I don't know. This is one of those teams where you're just watching the quarterback, and you're just wondering if he can be their quarterback of the future. Because if you have that, then everything will fall into place.
Yep. And there you go. Those are the Easts, the AFC and NFC, and we will wrap things up with the West, AFC and NFC, next time we do the podcast. Before we get out of here, we haven't done this in a week, or maybe a little over a week. Jackass of the Week, a.k.a. the John Fisher Award. Yeah, either way. It's interchangeable.
I like John Fisher of the Week.
Okay, fine. John Fisher of the Week. John Fisher of the Week. And I want to do it a little differently this week. I want Steven and the chat to decide who should be the recipient of the award. And I will give you guys the nominees because I think each of these guys could be worthy of it. So let's start with primetime, Deion Sanders. Deion, look, I like Deion the man and Deion the former football player. And I think Deion is a good leader of men. But this whole thing of, I'm not gonna have the media come after me. Like, he acts like he's not bothered by this shit, but he is. Like today, like Paul Feinbaum calls him out on Get Up, and he's like, I'm not even gonna respond to Paul Feinbaum, but he did. He did respond to him. Like, by saying I'm not gonna respond, you did respond, because he's like, well, we're irrelevant. You talking about us, so we're relevant. Deion refuses to have, I believe the reporter's name is Sean. I'll butcher it. I actually don't know their name, so I won't bring it up until I get the actual name. Sean Keeler. Okay, that's what I thought it was. Okay, then I was right then. Sean Keeler works for CBS in Colorado.
Denver Post.
Denver Post. Okay, Deion does not like this guy. He thinks that he does like gotcha journalism, and he asks him tough questions, and Deion can't be bothered by that. The fact that Colorado granted Deion's wishes and then now the man he's allowed to go to press conferences, but he cannot ask questions. I think that's bullshit. Like, I'm sorry. If he has a pass to be there, he should be able to ask questions. Now, this isn't anything new for Deion. Like, I remember him throwing water on, who's my guy that used to commentate for baseball back in the day, passed away, unfortunately, with Joe Buck.
Tim McCarver?
Tim McCarver. Deion Sanders got a bucket of water, heard about Tim McCarver calling him out for playing football and baseball at the same time, and threw water on him. So Deion has never liked the media, even though he worked in the media for quite some time on CBS and NFL Network. But now he gets to pick and choose.
To be honest, those guys don't think they're in the media when they're doing that. They think they're football experts. You know what I mean? They don't
No,
believe they're in the media. They have a different definition of media, right?
I totally get that. But if you're going to be a coach in this league, you have to take criticism. And Dion, he's a hypocrite. I'm not gonna say he's a bully because I don't believe that. I think he's built up a lot of young men, but I don't like the whole thing of him getting to dictate who is allowed to ask questions at a press conference. I think that's ridiculous. And now I guess a report came out that he called the NCAA after Oregon beat their ass, and he's like, "This seems fishy to me." And I don't know. There's just a lot of stuff that Dion's like. Colorado just won 4 games a year ago. I think we're hyping them up way too much.
Well, Dan Patrick had an interesting take on it. It is the media's fault for creating this, and the fact that there's this much coverage around Colorado. There shouldn't be this much coverage around a 4-win team, but Dion's kind of created that as well. That's what I would argue about Dan Patrick. That's what I push back on him on. But the Danettes aren't going to do that, are they? So I thought when I heard that, first of all, it's in his contract. It's a stipulation in his contract, which is ridiculous in itself. That he is allowed to he is allowed to talk to mutually agreed upon media. That's the language in his contract. So essentially, this allows him to do that. But banning reporters is a bad look. And I think the hypocritical part that you're talking about to me is when he says, "I'm not negative up here. I'm about love. I'm about being positive. I don't need that negative energy. I don't need all that." Well, where was that positive energy when you are calling out offensive linemen because they weren't blocking for your son? Like, that's the hypocritical part. There's a reason that 40 players entered the transfer portal from their program this year. 40 of them. And I was looking back at these other top tier programs, and there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of movement in the transfer portal. There's like 1,300 players, I think, entered the transfer portal this year in college sports or something. I mean, it might have even been college football alone. But you're seeing teams with 20, at most 30, 40 is almost unheard of. And you got to think that's because Dion, though he is helping a lot of his players and, helping them with more than just what's on the field. I think this is a bad look. I don't think this is a good influence at all. And I think that the fact that you're banning this guy, and I will say there was some things that I read from that columnist where there are certain names that he called Dion, some nicknames, and you're like, God, that's a little harsh. It feels like,
what do you say?
I don't remember the exact ones, but I was reading them. I was like, oof, that's tough. But like, if you're just gonna not take okay, you ban this one reporter, fine. But if you're not going to take any criticism from anybody, then what's the point of doing the press conferences? It's exactly like Dana White. Dana White does the same shit, man.
Yeah.
Dana White bans reporters, aka Ariel Helwani, who tried asking the tough questions, who supposedly got banned from UFC media because he let slip a certain fight card with Brock Lesnar and Frank Mir some time ago. And it's actually kind of funny. Dana White's been on this. It's a whole thing. He thinks John Jones, who's this heavyweight fighter who's had his problem with coke and lying and all these different things, but he's a fantastic fighter, one of the best that there's ever been. He hasn't fought in like 4 years, but Dana's still calling him like the pound for pound best fighter and is arguing with anyone who thinks otherwise. And in this recent press conference, a bunch of reporters pushed back on him, and people were like, holy shit, is he going to ban the entire media room after this? Like they were legitimately arguing for like 12 minutes over this guy being the number one pound for pound fighter. Point being, Dana White's Q rating is very low. Not many people like him too much. And I think Dion is kind of turning into that just based on these antics. It's a bad look.
Yeah, I never have a problem with a head coach going after the media. By all means, if they ask the question, you can totally get your head ripped off. But to not even give them the opportunity to ask the question, I think is ridiculous. Yeah. One of my favorite phrases of all time was when Brian Billick was the coach of the Ravens, and he was going after the media when he was getting hounded with questions about Ray Lewis and the murder trial. And one reporter says, "Why do you think you could talk to us this way? Why do you think you talk down to us?" And Brian Billick just simply said, because I'm the man with the microphone and you all came to see me. And that's the attitude you can have. I don't hate that at all. Bill Parcells, Mike Ditka, they all were that way in the 80s. But Bill Parcells and Mike Ditka never said that guy can't come in the room and ask me a question. Jim Mora Sr. never did that. They chewed the media's head off, and they're allowed to do that, but they never said you can ask a question. I think Dion's taking the wrong road there. So there's nominee 1. I'll speed this up a little bit. Nominee 2, I got Anthony Edwards. I don't know where he said this, but he said that Michael Jordan was the only skilled player of the 80s and 90s. And I love Anthony Edwards. I think he's very entertaining and one of the few American players in this league that is a star right now. But that's an ignorant thing to say. And then Magic Johnson comes back at him and says, they asked him about that opinion, and he just simply said, I don't talk about players that haven't won championships. And I think this speaks to the Gen Z generation, or just Gen Z. It's redundant, but Gen Z, of just the kids having an opinion about something that they really don't know about. And while I think Anthony Edwards probably is a student of the game, to say that Michael Jordan was the only skilled player of the 80s and 90s is ridiculous. There's Magic Bird, there's Magic Bird, Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, so many other people. Like to say like Scottie Pippen was not a talented player is ridiculous. So many players were talented. It's not even worth bringing up. It's just an ignorant thing to say about Ed. Hakeem, Shaq. It's a stupid thing to say. It just really is.
Yeah, but I think he'll learn from that.
Yeah, he's young, and he didn't know who A-Rod was, so. And lastly, I watched a documentary last night. I think you've seen it, Steven. The Connor Stallions Netflix doc. I watched it last night, and I thought it was interesting that they already made a documentary about this guy. Because you could see the cameras were rolling. They go with him to the national championship. Netflix just wanted to jump on the story. And I thought it was way too soon to do this. But it's there. It's entertaining, so I watched it. And I feel for the guy a little bit. Only because he was built up in this Michigan society. His parents were Michigan lovers. He grew up his whole life wanting to be a Michigan coach. And he got that opportunity. And the first job he was ever given when he was at Michigan was to be a signal caller or decipher the opposing team's signals. That's what he did, and he was good at it. And he just was a real overachiever. And he just wanted to be so indebted to the Michigan family and alumni and everything that he went above and beyond. And he won't admit it on the documentary, but it's plainly clear that he definitely sent scouts to other games to record practice, or not record practices, but record signals from the sideline, which is illegal, and that is cheating. Do I think the Michigan staff knew that? No. I do think he acted on his own volition. And I don't, while it is cheating, I think he's just a victim of his circumstance and what he grew up in, and I kind of feel sorry for him. What I don't feel sorry for him, though, was when he's seen hanging out with Dave Portnoy and Portnoy kind of leaning into it and everything and being like, yeah, that maybe was me in the Central Michigan sideline. Yeah, maybe I did this. I can't remember what tickets I gave to friends. I don't know. Playing it dumb. That's the part where I'm like, okay, stop being a jackass. But the whole cheating thing, I think that he was caught up in just really wanting to be a Michigan coach, and he just got blinded by what it takes to get there.
Yeah, I didn't buy in the documentary, The Michigan Love. Great. You have Rich Eisen and Adam Schefter and Dan Wetzel all talking about this story. The only one who felt like he was bringing some truth to it was the guy who was actually doing the news story I forgot what publication he works for in Detroit.
Yeah.
But the reporter who broke this story, it just seemed like this dude was playing the victim the entire time. And I get where you're coming from, because I do think it's pretty cool. Like, it's a cool story. He had a dream. He wanted to coach for Michigan. He wanted to for a really long time. And I was bothered by that guy, Brohio, the Ohio State.
That guy was disturbing.
Yeah, it's just like he's all over the message boards, dude. That's creepy as hell, man. Like at least this dude Connor Stallions tried doing something for his favorite team. I know you're getting like death threats and stuff, but you're still just sitting behind a keyboard, just commenting on things without taking much action. And that's just the definition of one of those, what are they called? Keyboard warriors.
Yeah. Yep.
So-called. So I did have a problem with that guy. But Dave Portnoy straight up outing Connor Stallions.
Yeah.
Like him try to go with his Bobby Valentine goatee disguise on the other sideline, where it was like Central Michigan or a team that's playing Michigan State or a team that's playing Ohio State. I just had a problem with the lack of accountability. And I know that, like, for example, I know Ernie has zero sympathy for what I'm going to talk about. I think Ernie too probably feels the same way. But the Astros and their cheating scandal, I know the apology was bullshit, but at least they tried doing something about it, getting out in front of it. They didn't come with the excuse that everyone else in baseball is doing this too, which they probably are. Just so happens they got caught. And with Michigan, there has been no accountability on their side, none from Jim Harbaugh, none from Connor Stallions, none from their alumni. There's just been none of it. So it's not just Connor Stallion who's a jackass or a John Fisher of the week. It's just all of the University of Michigan and the people who were involved in this and trying to downplay what they did. They cheated and they went outside of the rules to do it. You're allowed to steal signals or whatever. They say it's a subculture of college football, but just to act like, just to not even admit, yeah, they were wrong. Did it factor into the national championship? Not really. No. Apparently it didn't, but like still, you made a mistake, own up to it. And that's kind of the problem I had with the entire thing. You didn't get any of that. I'm not expecting that from Dave Portnoy because he is because he just loves the chaos. I mean, if you heard him, he was loving the attention that this brought to him, his company, his football show. Yep. He was loving every minute of it. So I was entertained, and quite frankly, it was a lot better than the Steve McNair documentary, which was just, there's a great idea there, but it was totally half-assed. I
agree.
I think I think Connor Stallions deserves a little bit of the John Fisher of the week, but I'm just going to go with everyone that was in that documentary. They're all John Fishers of the week.
All right, fair enough. So Steven votes for Connor Stallions and etc.
He also, I just couldn't get the fact that he looks like Chris Daughtry out of my head.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah. I mean, you can't get away from it. It's not his fault. He just has the same skin tone. He's bald. He has that kind of thin beard. Now, I mean, and when he was dressed up in the Central Michigan stuff, he kind of looked like, God, what's his name? Why am I blanking on his name?
Who?
Edward Norton out of American History X.
Oh,
like
yeah.
with the goatee. Just minus the Nazi tattoo on his swastika tattoo. On his chest. Minus that.
I would assume so.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Connor Stallions was fired from Michigan. He could have just said, "I'm going home
to the place where I belong."
That's Jim Nance's favorite band.
Really?
I told you that story, right? When I met Jim Nance.
Yeah,
Derek, you like Daughtry? All right, so everybody in the chat, cast your vote. Who do you think should be our John Fisher of the week? Should it be Dion? Should it be Ann Edwards? Or should it be Connor Stallions? And we'll tally the votes and give you the winner next time we do this.
I got my vote, but what'd you think of that McNair doc? You didn't.
I watched it. Look, I remember when Steve McNair died. It was July 4th, 2009, and I was shocked. And as soon as I heard that he was shot in the head and found dead with a younger woman, I knew what was going on. The doc, the only thing that came about it that I didn't know was the other drug dealer that knew the woman, the mistress, I forget her name. And I felt bad for the ex-boyfriend who grew up loving Steve McNair Come to find out, his girlfriend left him for Steve McNair. That's rough. It's kind of like Rob Corddry's character in Semi-Pro, where he's like such a fan of Woody Harrelson, and then he finds out like his girlfriend sleeping with him again. He's like, "Oh, nice." But as far as the conspiracy theories,
there's a random thing in that movie, by the way, where he's watching them begin to do the deed.
Yep.
And then he starts unzipping his pants.
Yep.
And but you see that he's wearing the Monarchs jersey.
Yeah.
And his jacket is covering the lettering in such a way that the jersey reads "cuck" on the front.
Oh, that's very well done.
A little nugget there. If you're next time you watch Semi-Pro.
Very well done. But yeah, like to insinuate that someone else killed Steve McNair and his mistress, I don't buy that. I don't buy like his best friend was pissed off at him for the business going under at the restaurant. At the end of the day, it's a sad story, but that girl was unstable, and I think she killed herself and Steve McNair.
Dude, that was it's just that's the problem I had with the documentary. It's it was cool that they did a little piece on the transition from Houston to Tennessee, and John Fisher talked a little bit about him. Wanted a little more on Steve McNair at Alcorn State. They talked about it briefly, but not too much. And they talked about his skill set and all that. They went through the 1999 season. Just always thinking of Lowe in that situation.
Yep.
And how much shit we gave him for that. And I'm just like, God, man, I feel kind of bad. But they didn't have a lot of people from that team talking, and I wish they would have had more. I think they only had like John Fisher. Did they have like Javon Curse? Was that the other one?
No, it was Brad Hopkins, the former offensive lineman.
Right.
And that's it, really.
Yeah, they didn't have a lot.
Eddie George didn't talk.
Like they didn't have anything from that. And then like they just all of a sudden bring this twist about how his friend is getting blamed because of the $13,000 that's in question, but they only went through it briefly. It's like it reminded me of me doing a high school project. I'd always have like a good premise. I'd always have a good way to kick off like an essay, but I never knew how to close it out. Could never close. Couldn't close, Derek. I guess you could mirror my personal life too. Couldn't close.
Well, you're getting married now, but
okay. Well, that's true. But I'm talking high school me.
Oh, okay.
But,
fair enough.
Yeah, like it's just or did I say Jeff? Oh, did I say John or did I say Jeff? Definitely not John. But anyway.
Jeff Fisher.
But yeah, it's like they just kind of brought that up, and it's like, whoa, wait a second. There's some guy who's going all over national TV and accusing the police. Where were they? Where were they at? Well, where was he when he got shot? Was he
Nashville.
in Tennessee?
Yeah,
Nashville. Like they were blaming the police department in Nashville for not, doing their due diligence in the investigation. I was just,
it's definitely looking for every other angle possible to make this a mysterious thing. But I thought this was always cut and dry, pretty clear, open and shut case. This girl was jealous of his other girls, and something they totally glossed over. While yes, Steve McNair was getting divorced from his wife, he was still married to the woman and had kids, and that was very damaging to his reputation at the time. So while they want to come up with these other theories, I think the most obvious one is that girl sadly killed him and killed herself. That's what I think happened.
It's just if you're brand new to football, never watched it before, and this is the first time you're seeing the documentary, and you never knew anything about the Titans, you'd think that after that 1999 season, that's when Steve McNair just up and went to the Baltimore Ravens, so ending his career. It's like, no, he had like 6 more seasons after that.
Yeah, they definitely glossed over that. They really should have balanced it better. Yeah, they made it seem like 99 was the pinnacle of his career, and then he had like subpar years in Tennessee and then went to Baltimore. It's like, yeah, that did not tell the whole story. His reputation took a huge hit after that story came out. Despite him being murdered, people were like, how can we view Steve McNair the same way? And this was months, actually. This is the same year that Tiger Woods, that whole situation with his wife, that's when people started to realize, oh, shit, athletes sometimes cheat on their wives. And that took a big hit for Steve McNair. All right. I think it's pretty clear. Everybody in the chat has already decided. Everybody thinks Deion Sanders is this
He is.
this John Fisher of the week. So yeah, all right. Prime time. He'll probably never come on our podcast now, but that's okay.
Unless you want to get into the whole Cheryl Swoops debacle.
I didn't hear about this.
She's just kept silent on Caitlin Clark, even though she's a WNBA analyst, and just is not giving Caitlin Clark any credit. She's like going out of her way to not say anything about Clark. And there's a whole thing. Now she's gone at Stephen A. Smith, and they've got this little back and forth. There's a moment from yesterday's game where the play-by-play guy was going through all these rookie numbers and mentioned how Clark is at the top of each of these several statistical categories or whatever. And yeah, Cheryl Swoops was just silent, just awkward silence. He was expecting a response, didn't get one. She does not want to talk about Caitlin Clark for whatever reason.
Well, fair enough. We also could have done another person this week. Steven's old high school teammate, or just someone he went to high school with back in the day.
He used to go to my high school. Yeah, he was more my brother's age, but
Robert Turbin.
What?
In his TV debut this isn't jackass worthy, but man, oof. Says so there's no more parity in college football anymore. Anyone could win the championship. I don't think he knows what the definition of parity is.
He does now.
He does now, unfortunately.
We've all been
right.
there.
What's up?
We've all been there.
No, I know. It was funny though. It was funny.
The amount of shit that awful announcing could have picked up from my pregame show. I don't even want to think about that.
Ah, man. Damn, they really missed out on that scoop, huh?
Yeah, they did.
All right, everybody, that is it for tonight. We may do a show on Sunday. Here's the thing. I'm going to Chicago this weekend, and I can't wait. Me and my old college buddies, we're going to Chicago. Never been before. Going to have a blast. Going to go to Pequod's, I think, for some deep dish pizza. The Wiener Circle, where they hurl hot dogs at you and insults. Going to take a boat tour. Everybody's going to Wrigley. I got to fly back that day. Damn it. Oh, Bonte's in Chicago. I might say what's up to Bonte then. But yeah, I'm going to Chicago. And while my buddies are going golfing Sunday morning, I got to figure out what I'm going to do. So I might pal around the town, or I might do this podcast. I'll let you guys know. But the main plan is we will be back on Tuesday to do our season preview show. That's where we'll pick all the division winners and whatnot, our Super Bowl predictions. So yeah, stay tuned for that one. So yeah, we may be back on Sunday, maybe not, but we'll let you know. All right, everybody, that is the show for tonight. To the Ernies, to AJ Cruz, to Tacky, to fake Derek Papa. I got to find out who the fuck this guy is. To Otis Bird is the word. I think that's everybody. And Jesse for a little bit of time. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you, if not Sunday, we'll see you on Tuesday. Steven, say what you always say.
It's just our opinion, man. That was my Deion Sanders impression.